As soon as I could afford it, I hired other people to make my paintings.
Why?
I just don't think it's important. What's important is that the end result is exactly what I want.
Even if it's not your hands doing the work?
Well, I mean, I feel like it is my hands doing the work. It doesn't matter whether I actually physically do the work or not, as long as I'm making sure that the end result is what I want.
So, when was the last time that Damien Hirst actually made his own artwork? Damien Hirst is one of the most recognizable names in contemporary art, but the question of authorship has long followed him. He's never hidden the fact that he relies heavily on studio assistants, and he even stated outright, "I've never had a problem with using assistants." For Hirst, delegation isn't a shortcut, it's a statement. It's the concept, the idea behind the artwork that always have taken precedence over the physical act of making his work. That's why, out of his 1,500 spot paintings, Hirst has actually admitted that he only ever made 5 of them himself. And in the artist's own work, that's because he simply couldn't be doing it himself. This approach drew a direct line back to Warhol's factory, where studio assistants would make his circus screens. Warhol transformed the role of the artist into more of a director. Hirst continues that tradition, operating a studio with dozens of employees who execute his designs. In this way, they are more like an orchestra who are simply acting out of the symphony of his own design. But this idea isn't new. Renaissance masters like Rubens and Raphael rarely painted every inch of the works they were commissioned to make. Workshops were the standard model, and an assistant were trained to replicate the master style very precisely. Even Leonardo da Vinci was the assistant to Rothschild. It's simply how artists learned their trade. The shift towards a more solitary style of an artistic production only really gained traction in the 19th century, when the Impressionists saw that you could mimic personal character through the brushstroke and painting on plein air. What Hirst is doing is therefore maybe less of a break from tradition and more of a return to it. But still, it is very reliant on his assistants that has fueled so much criticism in his practice. During the pandemic, Hirst laid off 63 of his studio assistants despite receiving millions in government funding. His critics have always argued that outsourcing undermines the authenticity of his work. And David Hockney is actually thought to be one such critic that during his Royal Academy exhibition, he had labeled a read, "All the works here were made by the artist himself personally." Although Hockney has denied that this dig was aimed specifically at Hirst. Even Hirst's most commercially successful works like the spot paintings and butterfly mandalas are typically executed by others. Equally, his most conceptual boundary-pushing works like a physical impossibility of death in the mind of someone living and the diamond encrusted for the love of God required a team of people to prepare and assemble the artworks. Yet Hirst remains adamant that each piece contains his unique vision. In his own words, every spot painting contains my eye, my hand, and my heart. For him, the artist's role is conceptual, not mechanical, and he sees himself more as an architect when it comes to producing artworks. While he may not lay every brick in the building, it wouldn't exist without his design. The position is echoed by the other major names in contemporary art like Jeff Koons, whose market has this position is echoed by the other major names in contemporary art like Jeff Koons, whose market has since paralleled or even overtaken Hirst. He famously said, "I'm the idea person. I'm not physically involved in the production." For both artists, the finished object is the result of many hands, but one mind. It is also worth nothing that Hirst doesn't hide his collaborators. He has publicly praised his longtime assistant, Rachel Howard, who is actually called the best spot painter he has ever worked with. She has also spoken about their symbiotic working relationship, and she remains a respected artist out of her studio. So, when was the last time Hirst actually physically created his artworks? Well, he's currently producing a repetitive series of floral paintings with both Gagosian and Henry. But does the question itself even matter? Many collectors, and for himself, obviously the answer is no. What matters is the idea and a provocation behind the works rather than the brush strokes on a canvas or a hand to a piece of paper. His system is about much more than the skill of an artist. It's about belief system, commodification, and mortality. The debate around authorship is new. It is evolving. In an era where algorithm can generate an art instantly, and an NFT can be made without an ever physical touching anything, Hirst's model, outsourcing to an assistant, almost feels traditional. So, whether you define him as a master artist, a conceptual provocateur, or simply a savvy businessman, there is no denying that Damien Hirst is redefining what it actually means to make an art in the 21st century. And that might just be the most original thing about it. So, how'd you like the video? If you liked the video, please subscribe and push the like button. Until next, have a great day.